Hi, I'm Reinhard Kate, and welcome to a very unique episode of the Ripple Drop. And like many of you around the world, I am also sheltering in place here in San Francisco, California. But on today's show, you're going to hear from some familiar faces about how Ripple is open for business. What steps has Ripple taken to protect its employees and customers?
Well, I don't think it will come as any surprise. That has been truly at the top of our list. And, we've got right around 500 employees globally. And one of the things we have to think about is how guidance from local governments, federal governments, global health agencies, how it's changing daily, how it's evolving. But, so far we have been, I think, quite fortunate, partly because of the communities we've lived in have taken this quite seriously. And we were pretty early in the process to restrict all of our business travel, which I think also obviously has served us well. So, we have one employee here at Ripple who, very well-known employee, Chris Larson, the chairman of the board and one of the co-founders who did come down with COVID-19. But to my knowledge, he's the only person that is a known case in the Ripple employee base. We also did a couple new things. In particular, we created a stipend for all of our employees to be able to buy some office equipment at home. The idea being that we're not all as accustomed to working a lot at home as we have been, and so whether it's a desk, a monitor, a printer, stuff like that is useful, and I think that has served us as well. From our customers, we have tried to make it very clear throughout this quarantine, the shelter-in-place directive, that Ripple has very much remained open for business. It's more important than ever, I think, to serve those customers effectively. And we have seen that play out in continued growth of volume across RippleNet, and some customers have grown, some customers have contracted a little bit, but overall we continue to grow the business. So excited about that.
Entire markets, both traditional and crypto, have been affected by the spread of COVID-19 around the world. What kind of impacts do you think we'll see on crypto companies?
Certainly we saw a bunch of volatility in the crypto markets. You saw crypto, which historically really has been a bit of a safe haven from and kind of uncorrelated with traditional equity markets. But we saw, I think, a big downdraft where a lot of people are looking for liquidity, and that affected, I think, the whole crypto industry. Ripple has been in a lucky position, in part because of good planning and execution, that we're in a really strong leadership position, and I think that is likely to continue and even strengthen during this time. I think, as I have said really for quite a bit of time, independent of COVID-19, I think any crypto dynamic is really, the success is dependent upon solving a real problem for real customers. And I think a lot of the use cases that didn't have real customers and weren't really trending the right way will probably be caught in this downdraft. But look, we certainly at Ripple want to be cognizant of how the market evolves. We need to be more prudent about business decisions. But we also will probably, because of the strength we're coming from, look at how do we strategically grow the business and look at deals, look at investments, even potentially acquisitions in the coming months. We think we can take advantage of the position we're in.
So how does the larger market volatility impact global payments as a whole?
The volatility of the economy creates some uncertainty for global payments. Now, on one hand, there's no doubt that we live in a global interconnected world. There's a lot of migrant workers, and the pandemic may slow down some of that, but there's no doubt that we continue to move money around the world. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. In the 2008-2009 crisis, we saw using companies like Western Union and MoneyGram as a barometer for remittance payments. We actually saw remittance payments continue to grow from Western Union and MoneyGram, just at a much slower rate than it had been. So in the early data, I've talked to the CEOs of some of our customers, and they continue to see robust money movement. Some different dynamics. Some customers are very focused on cash in or cash out. That meaning physical presence and retail presence is important. Obviously, a lot of retail is closed, so those businesses have been impacted negatively. But the digital-only or digital-first businesses have grown quickly, and you've seen average transaction size grow and things like that. But I'll also just mention, in a world where we're seeing a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty, and I have also said this about Ripple for a long time, we're playing the long game, and I do think that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and that definitely goes for a time like this particularly.
Since the start of the global pandemic, Italy's seen an 81% increase in e-commerce transactions. What kind of impacts do you think we'll see on on-demand digital payments going forward?
I think the macro trend line, we're already on a trend line to moving from cash to digital, and I think this is only, the environment we're living in right now has only served to accelerate that. It's happening more quickly. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that we are definitely seeing some of the digital players, they are thriving. Senders are accelerating usage of payment providers and using apps rather than accepting cash at a physical location. If you're dependent upon physical locations, that's a restriction given the kind of shelter in place and quarantine dynamics we're seeing globally. And so, across RippleNet, we are seeing some changes in payment volumes between countries that experienced bigger swings. Some of that's even manifested in exchange rates. Japan to Vietnam and other corridors like US to Brazil, where fiat currencies have changed exchange rates more materially, and so that has also impacted volumes. It's too early, I think, to really know definitively, are these permanent fluctuations or permanent changes or just temporary fluctuations? And I think even though we may see some corridors and some volumes drop in certain use cases, flows that we're seeing that are digital on both ends actually continue to grow, and the migration to those are growing.
That makes a lot of sense. So does the global pandemic have any impact on how RippleNet can process its payments for customers?
Many of our customers need RippleNet, and specifically on-demand liquidity, what we call ODL, more than ever. I think we're able to alleviate some of the stress that capital has become even more scarce in some ways. Despite interest rates going down and things like that, the ability to raise capital to grow is even more restrictive in some ways. And so the dynamics of how existing correspondent banks manage and remittance companies manage the pre-funding, I think it's an example really which increasing the demand for the products we have brought to market, and that we can alleviate some of the stress caused there. Look, at the end of the day, I think it's more important than ever that we at Ripple are in a position to support our customers. I mentioned earlier, it has been a kind of mantra for us that Ripple's open for business. We want to make sure that we're able to support our existing customers, continue to add customers onto RippleNet, and for those that are relying on something like on-demand liquidity, that they can still continue to grow their business and not be constrained by some of the capital requirements that are needed in traditionally, Nostro-Vostro account relationships and that pre-funding. But so far so good, and I think we're going to continue to see the overall pandemic, I think, positively impact demand for and usage of some of the products and some of the features across RippleNet.
With ODL using XRP to transact, is there any threat on its ability to settle if there's significant volatility on the underlying digital asset?
Look, as I was just saying, I think first and foremost, on-demand liquidity has incredible utility for customers, and I think we're seeing that now as much as ever. And we're getting that feedback directly from our customers, even more so now that we've sort of heard things like it's been a lifesaver. I think the current volatility has highlighted the need to continue to invest in our products, to invest in the partnership relationships, and really even to continue to invest in the clarity of how the XRP markets are working globally. But at a broader level, crypto markets have been really volatile. And when you look at the big picture, there's a whole bunch of markets that have been volatile. Year to date, crypto is up somewhere around 10 to 12%. Gold is up around 13%. And the S&P 500 here in the United States is down about 15%. So I think there has been, and I think there'll continue to be a lot of volatility. I also think you're seeing that volatility, as I mentioned earlier, in the FX markets. So when some providers are very dependent on the liquidity in the traditional FX markets, we certainly saw this in the Philippines, where institutional markets team has had to do a lot of work over time to ensure there's sufficient liquidity in our on-demand liquidity markets. And there are actually times when on-demand liquidity was able to provide a solution when the traditional FX markets actually weren't able to, particularly in the Philippines, for a period of time. So we're getting smarter about how volatility impacts our business, and I think this has certainly been an extreme example, but we've been fortunate to be able to continue to serve the customer, and make sure Ripple is open for business.
So why is a decentralized system like the XRP ledger uniquely positioned to succeed in today's environment?
Over time, proof-of-work-based systems like Ethereum and Bitcoin have actually become more centralized as mining has become increasingly concentrated in smaller groups and in smaller geographic regions. Consensus-based systems like the XRP ledger don't work that way. They don't have that inherently centralizing tendency, and they can provide a much higher assurance of fairness to everyone who chooses to use them.
So what strengths does the XRP ledger offer a world with an increasingly remote workforce that we're seeing today?
The XRP ledger is an open source, decentralized technology that anyone can build on and work with. Anyone working from anywhere can download the source code to the XRP ledger, run a node, run a validator, develop on top of it, build tools to work with it, or use it for any purpose they want without having to get anyone's permission. Today, Ripple's Spring effort is providing tools and support to make it even easier to develop on top of the XRP ledger.
How does the XRP ledger make on-demand liquidity an even more reliable payment system during turbulent times?
It's recently become much more difficult to conduct business in person, and because distant systems like package shipping and the internet are gluing the world together now, businesses are being conducted over even longer distances than they were before. It's even more important to enable payments across currency. There isn't a global currency. People want to pay with the currencies that they're used to, and people want to receive payments in the currencies that they're used to. So when you have transactions between people that use different currencies, you need some way to make those payments work quickly and efficiently. The XRP ledger has a decentralized native digital asset, XRP, that is liquid to every major fiat currency through a large number of exchanges. By using that intermediate currency, payments can easily be effected across currencies and across the planet. Ripple offers RippleNet as an enterprise payment system with an on-demand liquidity solution that uses XRP to make rapid fiat payments across different currencies.
When you established the XRP ledger, was sustainability a key factor?
This was back in 2011 and 2012, and I think it was just starting to become noticeable that systems like Bitcoin, based on proof of work, would encounter sustainability and scalability challenges. That was definitely one of the factors that went into the design of the XRP ledger. It doesn't require the energy consumption and impose the scalability limitations of proof of work. Proof of work systems like Bitcoin and Ethereum have today encountered significant sustainability and scalability challenges. The XRP ledger's consensus-based design provides very fast transaction confirmations at very low speeds and doesn't have the kind of resource consumption that proof of work-based systems have.
I hear Ripple's launching a podcast around some of these similar topics, and it's featuring you as the host. So, could you tell me some more about it?
I am super excited to announce that I'm hosting Ripple's first podcast, Blockstars, coming out the first week of May. I don't want to give away any of the surprises, so I think I'll just say, please listen. I think you'll enjoy it.
How have you and your team transitioned to working from home?
That's a good question, Reinhard. It's been a week by week sort of transition, and what's unique about this environment is that we had no idea that it was going to last this long. So it's been really great to actually, at the end of the week, we sort of have a debrief on what things we should be doing better for the next week. So I think one thing is just continuing to iterate and improve our work from home environment. But overall, I gotta say, it's really impressive how the teams have come together, how they've adapted, and how they're finding new ways to collaborate. And just like you and I are on this video conference, and if we were in the office, we'd be sitting side by side. We're adapting, we're changing, and some things are actually better. And then one example of that is that we're writing things down every single time we have a meeting or a decision. And I think that's something that no matter what happens, we're going to transition that sort of practice back into our everyday work environment, because I think it's just a better, more efficient way of working.
That's cool. Well, Ripple is obviously a global company, right? So how does a global company like Ripple maintain its culture while working remote? Has your team sort of done anything special to try to stay close while everyone's sort of decentralized?
Yeah, I think that's, there's been one really unique advantage that I didn't anticipate, and you hit it, in your question. We're a global company. We have several offices around the world. And a positive thing in this environment is that I've been able to connect with folks from the India office, from the Dubai office, Singapore, and London. And it almost feels like we're gelling as one global team, where I think prior to this environment, the culture was more San Francisco headquarter based. And so we're decentralizing, our culture a little bit more in this environment, which I think is actually very healthy. I also have to hand it to our workplace team. That's the team that is in charge of facilities and infrastructure across the globe. They've done such a good job of engaging folks around the globe, whether it's using Slack or whether it's using web conferences or impromptu happy hours, to preserve some of that culture. And to be honest, it's almost like creating a little bit of a new culture that's decentralized and actually more inclusive of our global workforce.
That's really cool. I've definitely felt the effects of that, especially as a parent of 2 small kids. I found myself being able to attend virtual happy hours more frequently than I could ever attend a happy hour in person.
That also brings up a good point of I've also got to meet, I've met your kids before in person, but it was great to actually see so many of the other folks and their families. Because listen, if you're not in San Francisco and you're commuting in, you probably don't bring your kids into the office as much just because it's logistically challenging. But we just did I co-hosted a reading time yesterday, and your kids were on there and they were super adorable. But it was great to see so many other Ripplers and their families and meeting their kids for the first time virtually. And again, Ripple is not just a place where you come in and you check in and you check out at the end of the day. It has always been more like a family to me, and connecting with more families, more people around the globe has just been, again, a very positive, side effect of the entire pandemic.
Spot on. I 100% feel that. So serious question, how getting away from culture, but now getting back towards making sure that we're delivering, how does Ripple in general and even your team stay focused on delivering to RippleNet customers in this new environment?
Yeah, so I think number one, I think that this environment is challenging for everyone, and so one thing is ensuring that we have empathy for what our customers are going through and all their challenges. And more than not, I've seen that there's a lot of new kinds of product features that we could potentially build for these customers that solve big problems for them that are only larger now with the pandemic. So for example, we hear more now than prior to the pandemic that folks do not want to pre-fund global currencies around the world. Why? Because, for example, the peso has depreciated 30% against the dollar. That's 30% less cash that our customers have globally. And so listening to these customers and them telling us where their pain points are, and some of these pain points are even larger, helps us become better, better solution providers, helps us be more empathetic to some of their needs, and at the end helps us develop a better product for them.
How are you personally transitioned? Do you have any tips for how you sort of have stayed focused and efficient while working at home? I know you've got 2 beautiful kids. How do you keep everything together? Do you have any tips for the rest of us?
Well, I think as most of you guys have realized, and if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that the first week was a bit of a challenge for me. So, I like to be out there. I like to interact with people, and being stuck at home for the first week was tough. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to look back at this time, Reinhard, and we're going to say this was a time where if we're lucky enough to be at home with our families and not on the front lines of this thing, we're going to look back at this time and say, wow, what a gift. And that we could spend more time with our families. We can connect with loved ones, we can connect with others in new and unique ways. So I think, I think that's been a positive. Definitely more empathy for all the people that have had to sacrifice and going in, whether it's your delivery man, if you're in the logistics industry, or at a hospital, definitely more empathy, and super grateful for what they're doing for everyone that's impacted by this environment. I also feel like, us as parents, it's totally fine if a kid wanders onto a Zoom call. It's totally fine if you're interrupted because maybe someone shot a Nerf gun at your head in the middle of a video call, which has happened to me once already. But you also should be okay if someone says, listen, I know that I was supposed to get this to you by the end of the day. It's just not going to happen because I got a lot of other different challenges to work on, balancing family and so forth. So I think that people got to be less hard on each other. And I think also it's okay for you to take a quick break here and there if you have to deal with a younger one or a baby. I think it's new and different times. So I think just having more respect and empathy for each other, I think is also another thing that I'm learning and trying to appreciate a little bit more.